So our first presenter is Elwood York, and he is currently the Acting Deputy Director for Employee Labor Relations at USAID, the Agency for International Development. He's a 30-year veteran of civil and criminal trial attorney whose history in the profession includes tenures as a judge, a law professor, and the criminal district attorney in Houston, Texas, which is a very densely populated location. He was Principal Assistant Attorney General in the beautiful US Virgin Islands. And he, most importantly, as it relates to our opportunity to talk to him today, he worked as the Wilderness Program Lead for the US Forest Service from 2012 to 2014. He has been part of several national award-winning teams that address the needs of underserved youth by fostering civic engagement, research, and wilderness stewardship. He's a staunch advocate for wilderness education and environmental conservation. So when I asked him about some of his earliest childhood outdoor recreation experiences, he talked about camping in his backyard and fishing for two fish that I couldn't pronounce because I have never seen them before. One was a sunfish and one was a brim. He also talked about one of the most amazing experiences he had with his wilderness colleagues on the Scapegoat Wilderness when he was riding horses through that area, and the opportunity to sit around the campfire with several of his other wilderness program leads from other program areas. So, without further ado, I'd like to introduce Elwood York and his presentation on the do's and don'ts of urban outreach.
Thank you. I'm technologically hostile, so the gentleman from the IT is going to run a short clip, and I'll jump right in when my time is ready. You're the man.
Welcome back. We'll be talking to youth who are engaged in learning about outdoors and wildlife and taking the message home to their peers.
One of the things that's easy to recognize as a person of color is that when you come to spaces like this, there isn't a lot of racial diversity. And I think the Forest Service recognizes that too, that America is the salad bowl of mixtures of cultures and people from all walks of life. But unfortunately, that diversity is not always represented in who's exploring our most wild places in America. But I, as a person of color, enjoy this space. And I want to challenge everyone to remember that these spaces are all of our spaces, that we all own this together, and that we're all critical stakeholders in protecting this part of our heritage.
Hello everybody, my name is Trevon Lee. I was born and raised in Miami, Florida. I am a Mobilized Green intern who is doing forest technician work here in the Bonners Ferry district of the Idaho Panhandle National Forest. I am studying environmental engineering back home. Last year, during the internship, I worked with the Trails and Recreation Department, the trail crew. It was a lot of hard work in the sense of physical. You got to meet people and see the value that they place on it and knowing that that work is being done, and that made me take pride in it. And this year, I am in charge of recreational planning in certain areas and collecting data on usage. The reason why I came back to Bonners Ferry for the second year of the internship, I really enjoyed my first year. Being from Miami, Florida and growing up there are not a lot of the opportunities environmentally that are here present in South Florida. And last year was my really first outbreak into the outdoors, and it was amazing. I loved it. I loved the people that I was surrounded by. What they've been able to imprint on me and teach me is all out of passion and love for what they do. And that's something I really respect about the Forest Service. I'm doing this because I love the environment. I'm doing this on the side, even seasonally. And I think about it that way, I can make it personal as possible. I take 2 months out of my year to come here a second time because of that passion, that love for it.
Now, everyone, what we're trying to do is get those two kids into the woods. That's what we're really looking for. We're not really necessarily looking for Pookie and Ray Ray. We're not necessarily looking for that troubled child. There's always something for the super intellectual kid, that gifted kid. There's always something for them. There's programs. There's always a program for that ne'er-do-well kid. But how do we get that B-, C+ kid out? Because if you think about it, that's kind of who we were. Okay? So how do we get that kid involved? And so I only got about 15 minutes, and I used up 2, so I'm going to treat you just like you in the neighborhood. Some of the things I'm going to say going to make you a little uncomfortable. Some you're going to laugh, but I used to run a prison. Even the men on death row tell jokes. Okay, so sit back, kind of loosen your tie, take your shoe off, and we're going to have a little intervention here. Who's here from the Forest Service? Okay, my millennial, Carmen, can you tell me what the budget is for the U.S. Forest Service? You can Google it. Go ahead. I know you got it. Who's here from the Park Service? Can you tell me what the budget is for the Park Service? How much? 3 million or billion? B, right? Okay, Fish and Wildlife Service, what's your budget? Do you know somebody here? Don't be ashamed. Okay, I bring that up because you can Google it and find it out. So when a young kid walks up to you and says, I need a job for the summer, and I'd like to make about $500 a week, and you tell him we don't have any money, he Googles your budget and goes, what the hell are you talking about? Okay, so we got to look at this a little different, okay? Now, the reason I have these pictures playing in the background is to dispel an urban legend. Every time I was in this job, I'd go somewhere and people would tell me, I didn't know black people went outdoors. I didn't know they skied and scuba dived and hunted. I didn't know black people camped out. Well, I only got 15 minutes, so if you keep watching, you're going to see black people doing a little bit of everything. So don't be exclusive, be inclusive. We go fishing, hunting, skiing, scuba diving, and please, please, for my friends in the Forest Service, meet with them after I'm gone so they don't think I'm some, Black Panther or something. We just don't go with y'all. Okay? It's not personal, but think about it. When I got this job, my mother's the lady here from Columbia. My mother's got a PhD from Columbia. I got 3 college degrees. I told my mother I was going to be the wilderness program leader. They had an intervention. The whole family came and met me in the kitchen and said, sit down, son, you okay? You got a girl pregnant? I mean, why are you trying to go to the woods? My father's looking at me like I lost my mind. He said, boy, I worked my whole life to get off the farm, and now you want to go back to the woods? What's wrong with you? So after they realized that I was dead beat to go, my mother said, well, okay, and she hugged me. She said, well, can we meet the chief? I'm like, Chief Tidwell? She says, yeah, can he come by the house? Can we talk to him? Does he know you going in the woods for places there's no cell phone? You got to ride a horse for 5 or 6 days? You can't call. Does he know? I'm like, yes, ma'am, he knows. Said, is he going? I'm like, nah, he's sending me. She goes, okay, well, can we go meet the chief? I'm like, well, I might be able to get you in to meet the chief, but that's not going to help. So after about 3 or 4 hours of this intervention, they said, well, I guess you determined to go. So my mother got up and walked around the table. She hugged me, and she said, okay, I'm going to let you go, but don't you go out hunting with them people at night. Okay, I just want y'all to understand. That's where my mother's born in the 20s. Her ideal of wilderness and outdoor is Emmett Till. You ain't coming back. You going with some white people you don't know? What's wrong with you, boy? You don't even watch Star Trek. When the black guy goes on the planet, he's the one that dies. So why will you be dead set to go into the wilderness with people you don't know? That's what you are contending with when you go to an urban community and you want to take their children into the woods. It's not personal to you. It's not that they are offended. Certain Black and Latino communities, they, just like any other community, they have 2 or 3 of the kids in the family that they think might really make it. That kid might be the one make it to college. That might be the one that doesn't get shot at McDonald's. They are not going to give you that kid to take to the woods when they can't get their hands on them. They don't know you. You are going to have to establish some type of street credibility with them. You're going to have to show up more than once. Now, some of you say, well, we go. Well, I'm going to tell a story at the end, but let's think about what your uniforms look like. It was a lady here in a Park Service, a Fish and Wildlife Service uniform. Y'all look like Customs and Border Patrol. Damn, you're going to go in a Latin community looking like Customs and Border Patrol, and you know in the community it's a no-snitch rule. So why would they want to be seen talking to you? Even if you got something good to say, they're not going to be seen talking to you. So if you want to do business in that urban environment, show up dressed regular. Eventually, they'll think the uniform is cool. But you can't just show up with your Forest Service shield and your Smokey Bear hat and you walking in like, and you're proud of your uniforms. Don't get me wrong. When I put mine on, I thought I was the bomb. I had my uniform on, high and tight. My friends are like, what is wrong with you, man? You don't go with us. You stand over there. We're going in the store. You just stand over here. That's what you encounter in an urban community. When you go out and you try to work out things that you say, well, we're worried about gang relations. I'm in a gang. One of your speakers here is in a gang. And we didn't figure out we were in the same gang until we started to talk. There are fraternities and sororities in the Black community are really gangs. Don't get it twisted. We got colors, we got handshakes, we got houses, and if you show up with the wrong color, claiming to be the other gang or the wrong gang, you're in for a world of problems. And don't get it twisted. Martin Luther King is in a gang. He's a member of Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity, and their colors are black and gold. I'm a member of a fraternity called Omega Psi Phi fraternity. Our colors are purple and gold. Don't get them confused, okay? Now, just so you understand, Vernon Jordan is in my fraternity. Jesse Jackson, Coleman Powell, Michael Jordan, Shaquille O'Neal, Kwame Mfuse, okay? We got some gang members. We just don't sell crack, okay? So the same with Martin Luther King, with the Alphas, with the Kappas. So as organizations, if you're trying to reach into the community, let's be clear. You got to go into the community with organizations that already have community ties. How many of you, I'll give you an example. Park Service, y'all about to be 100 years old. Do you have a working relationship with the Buffalo Soldiers? That's a sad commentary. 100 years and your original park ranger, you do not have a working relationship with them. What about the triple nickels, the Forest Service? Although I'm with the Forest Service, I ain't gonna beat y'all up because hey, it's sibling rivalry for what y'all know. I mean, we the Forest Service, I'm gonna have to give Interior hell. But the people who invented smoke jumping are known as the triple nickels. They invented smoke jumping because they thought black people were too afraid to jump out of a plane and fight in the war. So they said, we're gonna test your mettle. Let's see if you'll jump out of a plane in a silk suit and fight a fire. Oh my God. Yeah, I'd rather jump out and fight the Germans than to jump into a forest fire with a silk suit on. But that's what they did. They called it Sweet 16. We have a room named for them at the Forest Service. So when you can't say, well, I don't know how to reach urban black youth, you might be fishing in the desert. Or as my wife likes to say, it is extremely difficult to keep a fish alive with the bait that you use to catch it. You can't invite them out to s'mores, to eat s'mores, and then say, this is it. Because they know you checking the box. They know that. So you can't check the box. Now, I got my 5-minute symbol, so I'm going to run through some things quickly. The National Association of Black Scuba Divers. They exist. They do this. They're doing a slave ship research right in the Florida Keys. They would love to work with the Park Service or the Fish and Wildlife Service. Okay? The Buffalo Soldiers, the National Brotherhood of Skiers, the 4 major black fraternities, Omega, Kappa, Sigma, the women, AKAs, Delta, Phi Beta, Sigma, you don't have any relationships with them. And I say all of this to bring you to this point. The Los Angeles National Forest collects 1 ton of trash a day, 2 tons a day on the weekend. So I thought I was being Mr. Land Resource Manager. I go out and I meet with some kids on the San Bernardino, and I said, I'd like y'all to help me collect the trash on the San Gorgonio Wilderness and in the San Bernardino. And they were like, oh, that's great. Now, I had already talked to the leader of the group, and we were going to teach them how to do GIS trail mapping. We were going to do, it's a class 1 wilderness, so we were going to take air quality samples. We were going to do campsite inventories. For those of you from the West Coast, the first segregated NCCC camps were on the West Coast in Angeles and San Diego. So actually the first trails in the Angeles were built by black people. And so I was going to give them some legacy work. But the program director raised his hand, because he knew me well enough to give me a hard time. He raised his hand while I'm explaining how we need to get this 2 tons of trash up. And he goes, Elwood, are you telling me that the chief of the Forest Service sent the black guy to get the Mexicans to pick up trash? He said, we don't even pick up the trash in our own neighborhood. Why the hell would I hike way the hell up in the San Bernardino or the San Gabriel Mountains to pick up trash? That's your best offer? Well, I was dumbfounded for a minute, but at least I had a comeback because I thought I was in a friendly. I had to explain all of the other things we were going to do. The kids bought and they loved it. Now those kids, and I have the letter he sent me right here, those kids went from the city of San Bernardino, which had gone bankrupt. So all they really said they were they were just Mexicans with leaf blowers and rakes cleaning median strips, to being the National Wilderness Stewardship Award winners 2 years in a row. Because somebody gave them an opportunity and somebody showed them that there was something that they could do other than use leaf blowers. They live 20 minutes from the mountain. If any of you been to San Bernardino, you can catch the bus to the wilderness. But they don't go because our uniforms look like Customs and Border Patrol. They don't want to go. They've never slept outside. So they want to know, like, well, what's in it for me? And I wish the chief was here because he's really my best salesman in this process. For those of you who don't know, the chief started as a seasonal. He didn't come in at a 14 and become the chief. He started out as a seasonal fighting fires. And he moved all the way from a seasonal to the chief. So when I'm telling the young kids you need to go out, they see a future. They want a job. Young Black and Latino kids cannot afford to volunteer. And my boys here is from the SCA. The SCA is great. They do it. But they'll tell you they can't afford to pay. Their administrative cost is too much for them to pay. Most of the kids live in a car. These kids want jobs. They want a future. They want an opportunity to do better. They want a cell and a seed. They want to be proud. Don't say there's no money in the urban community. For those of you who are from DC, you can get on the subway and there's a guy standing next to you with an $800 Helly Hansen jacket on, a Burberry scarf, and some $200 Air Jordans. So don't always walk into the urban community thinking everybody's broke. They just don't want to spend the money on what you're talking about until you make it interesting to them. So lead in with something that is desirable to the audience with which you're trying to attract. We keep wading in with what is tried and true, and I want to have a Dr. Phil moment with y'all. How is that working? You got, what, 18% total non-white participation in parks? The whole country gonna be majority minority in like 20 years. If those two guys back there choke on their chicken sandwich and me and him leave, it ain't no black people in here. What are we talking about? So we need to look at this different. You need to approach the urban community from a whole different perspective. You need to find out who is not the poverty pimp. There's a whole bunch of people in the urban community that have made a living off of pushing poverty. We know them. We've been seeing them all our life. So when they show up and you show up with them, they go, oh, here these guys come again. Because remember, we got a black president, been one for 8 years. The first thing Congress said was, we're going to make sure you don't secede. And then here we show up and say, oh, you know, we're from the government and we're here to help. Show me, help me. Tell me what you're offering. Show up more than once. Show up with somebody we respect, because nobody is going to let the child that they save, when you see that grandmama reach in her bra and slip that kid that $20, that's the one she's trying to save. She is not going to give that child to you to go out into the woods. You're going to have to prove that you deserve to take them. So as you're looking at the urban community, and I know my time is about dead, I'm eager to stay around and talk, but there are ways that you must approach that community. Don't be risk averse, don't be conflict averse, because in most urban communities, that's how we check your background. If you show up and we confront you, if you wither and walk away, they're not going with you. They want to see if you can push back a little bit. Tell me why you're proud of being in the Forest Service. Okay, and last but not least, in Native American communities, think about this, the owl is a symbol of death. And you show up with woodsy owl and you say, give me your children, we're going out in the woods. Okay, I mean, really think about that. It's the little things that we kind of don't do well. I wish I had more time because I had about 3 speeches. LULAC, NCRC, Aspera, the Hispanic Foundation, MANA, the Labor Council for Latin American Advancement. Why we don't have agreements with them? That's the community that's going to save it. Because going to the woods and going outside should not be like going to a hotel. For those of you who stayed in a hotel last night, You did not make up the bed. You did not sweep the floor. You did not even pick up your towel. You didn't cut the light off. You let the TV run while you're here today. But if you were at your grandmother's house, you would have kind of swept up. You would have used some leave no trace methods, and you would have left. And you still like going back to your grandmother's. The woods, the outdoors, and recreational activity should be like going to your grandmother's. It should not be like the hotel, because if you treat it like the hotel, the young people will look at it like a hotel, and they will abuse it and use it like a hotel, and you will never have a constituent while you're walking the hill. I'll stay around, but my time is dead. Thank you very much.